billion on roads, and you tell us this is related to COVID. We ought to investigate those matters. You can railroad through the system. We will not be part of any attempt to rush through the system. The public purse must be protected.
We take you live to Parliament. Also tonight, injustice to the people of Ghana. The opposition NDC's reaction to the Supreme Court's latest dismissal of its push to have the voters' register judgment set aside. Their lawyers, led by Chachu Chikata, refused to argue after the Apex Court rejected his request for an adjournment.
That for me was against the practice. That for me was against the right of the NDC to enable the NDC reply to those matters deposed in the affidavit. I think that today the Supreme Court actually did injustice to the people of this country.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gassim Cement, the nation building Vodafone. The future is exciting ready. The Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta has today clashed with NDC minority members on the Finance Committee of Parliament as he attempted to push through a suspension of the law that limits government spending. The Fiscal Responsibility Act prohibits spending beyond 5% of GDP in any given year. The Finance Minister yesterday laid before the entire House his proposal to suspend the law. He has been justifying the need to suspend it today before the Finance Committee, pointing to the COVID-19 pandemic. But the minority says none of the estimates presented so far show that government intends to spend huge amounts on COVID-related expenditure. We're going to take you shortly live to Parliament, where this very important committee hearings has been going on all day. A short while ago, my colleague Joseph Opoku-Gapo caught up with the Finance Minister just after he appeared before the committee, and the Finance Minister was pretty upbeat that he succeeded in convincing the entire committee to back his plan to suspend the law.
Fine about the suspension of that. And I think the committee is approving it. They are going through the 11.9 billion supplementary estimate, okay, and that's going well.
Okay, so you made them understand that it's okay to spend about the 5% deficit. That's why the requirements in the Financial Responsibility Act, and both the majority and the minority side have agreed that this was necessary.
Right. I think the law is very clear that when there's a shock of this nature, and you know this is a pandemic, not even an epidemic, which is higher. And you also know that the president came through Parliament to get specific emergency powers. So really it's a procedural issue, not anymore justification.
They've probably understood your position as you are espoused, particularly the minority side, which will not warrant their threats in the past for.
It doesn't have a position so much as the law. I mean, if you get a chance to read the law, I'm not sure that there's any basis for not doing that. I'm supposed to suspend and then come to them for approval. I think they are quite satisfied at this point.
Suspension until when? Over that duration? And he was making
the will be for through this year, and we'll have to come back to Parliament for approval for next year.
What will be your final word to Ghanaians, even as we spend beyond expected levels?
I think really the president has said so, that in this time of crisis is what we should understand our economy and actually move towards a revitalization. That's the Abatampa Ghana Cares program of 100 billion. That is exciting, that's hopeful, and I think that will take us through this moment.
Well, we're now hearing from other minority members who also left the meeting, understand, whilst it was still ongoing, that the finance minister's, confessions to us that he's managed to convince the entire committee, including the majority side, to buy into his plan to suspend the law limiting government spending isn't true. We've been hearing from Finance Committee member John Jinapo, who insists they will not support the approval of the request to suspend the law. He says the additional 11.8 billion Ghana cedis the minister has requested for the supplementary budget estimates are not meant for COVID-19 expenditure, and that they simply cannot be part of it?
The majority side think that they can bulldoze their way through. They think that the minority cannot have a say. Parliamentary democracy predicts and stipulates that at least the minority must have its say. You cannot request the Republic of Ghana to allow you to go and borrow 11.8 billion, and you can't account for that. The minister is clear, and I encourage you to go and read Appendix 3A of the budget, that he wants to spend over 3 billion on COVID-related matters. This is the table he gives to us. This is the table. He wants to spend 1.1 billion on security. He wants to spend 1.5 billion on this Assembly's Common Fund. He wants to spend 1.3 billion on roads, agriculture, and so-called energy payments. And you tell us this is related to COVID. What has road construction got to do with COVID? What has agriculture support got to do with COVID? What has the shortfall in compensation got to do with COVID? And when we want details, we want enough information in order to protect the public purse. The majority decides that they will just railroad their way through. We will not be part of that. We have sworn an oath to protect the Constitution. We have sworn an oath to serve the interest of Ghana. I'm a member of Parliament, paid by you, the taxpayer. It is my duty to ensure that every penny, every peso is well accounted for. This year alone, you are borrowing over 50 billion. Who will pay that money?
Does that suggest that the 11.89 billion that is being requested for are things that are all funds that are going to be obtained by way of borrowing from outside and not generation from internal sources? Is that what the position that has been presented to the committee by government?
The budget clearly states that every peso from this 11.8 billion will be borrowed. Even the subsidy for electricity, we are going to borrow it. You, the ordinary Ghanaian, would eventually pay. That is the truth. And so when we want to investigate this matter, we want to ensure that the right thing is done. This government has just about 5 months. I'm not being political. It's possible they wouldn't win this election. It's possible that another government will take over. And so when they are taking decisions that have far-reaching implications, we ought to investigate those matters. We ought to be clear. You can railroad through the system. We will not be part of any attempt to rush through the system. The public purse must be protected.
What is your personal position or that of the entire minority? Because some of your colleagues are still in the meeting.
I am a member of Parliament, and I've stated my position clearly. The good people of Yape Kosogo constituency voted for me. I'm being paid by you, the taxpayer, your money. And I have to do the right thing. I'll take my debate to the floor. And I can assure you that I'll take my debate to the floor.
So when you say you'll not be part of it, what? You
I'm saying I can't approve this. I can't approve this amount on the surface of it. Because it doesn't meet even simple public financing system. If you tell me that you want to pay an outstanding claim, let me just show you this, please, just 1 minute. Payment of outstanding claims, District Assembly's Common Fund, 144 million. What does outstanding claim mean? The District Assembly Common Fund is a percentage of total revenue. It presupposes that that revenue has been collected. This is simple. And you want to go and borrow to pay for monies you have collected but you cannot account for. What kind of analysis is this? We can't allow that. I will not be part of this. No, I won't be part of this. It won't happen.
But just to clear this up for us, we thought the budgetary estimates were approved yesterday. What separately are you doing here that would have to come back?
We haven't approved the budget estimates. We have to go through the estimates. We have to justify that estimate before we go to Parliament. He wants to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act.
He said he had money to convince you. He said he had money to convince you.
He hasn't convinced me. If he had convinced me, I would have started to vote for him. Look, let us learn to do what is right. It's not about me. It's not about elections. It's about this country. We owe it a duty to do what is right and proper.
Let's go live now to Parliament. My colleague Joseph Gakpo has been watching this committee hearings very closely and is on the line with me right now. Joseph, so has there been a decision yet?
That is something that, depending on which side of the House, in terms of the NDC or the MPP, are talking to, varying perspectives are being given. The MP for Yape Kosogo, for example, walked out of the meeting. There were a number of other minority MPs who sat through it, including Ben Kwedo, who is the MP for Ho Central, and the deliberations continued. In fact, even individuals who are not members of the Finance Committee showed up to come participate in the proceedings, including the ranking on the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee. From the indication that we're getting from the meeting, which has actually since ended, and what we saw was that this is actually a meeting that dealt with two things. Yesterday we saw the approval for the general statement being given, but today the House is the Finance Committee was supposed to look at the specific estimate and come back to Parliament sometime next week with a report on whether the House should approve the specific estimate, and then the issue having to do with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, that was a separate item. The Finance Minister sat through the Fiscal Responsibility Act discussion and then left when the estimate had to be dealt with, led by some of his deputies. The indication that we're getting is that at the level of the majority using their numbers, they will be coming to the House with a report that will say the Finance Committee is recommending, first of all, that Parliament actually waive the said details in the Fiscal Stability Law, and also to approve the specific estimates having to do with the 11.8 billion. Although those on the minority are insisting that unless they get the full details, then that will not happen. But clearly, even at the level of the Finance Committee, the majority are using their numbers to give the green light to this particular request.
I see. So clearly, we're going to have a one-sided decision on this, where the majority side will say approve, the minority side will say disapprove, and normally we know how this plays out on the floor. The House seemed to adopt what the committee will propose.
Yes, and we heard Mr. Jinapo give the indication that he will argue forcefully against approving this when the issue eventually gets to the floor. And it could end up in various ways. We could end up seeing the minority probably abstain when eventually the approval of the Finance Committee's report needs to be done on the floor, or we could see them demand specifically that there be a head count, what is usually described as a division, which will then end up dragging the process. But clearly, right on the Finance Committee itself, and also in the chamber, the majority has the numbers, and despite the disagreements as are being expressed by the minority, the Finance Committee's report will eventually recommend that the House approves both the estimates and also the waiver of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and also give the green light for the necessary approval in terms of how the Committee will recommend, despite the minority's opinion.
Thank you very much, Joseph, there. And you want to stay with us because there's going to be more on this. We're going to get the leadership of the committee to try and give us a clarity on how they intend to proceed on this matter. Another top story we are following for you this evening. They had come for a second round of arguments at the Supreme Court, hoping to be second time lucky in getting the court to set aside its earlier dismissal of the NDC attempt to stop the compilation of a new voters register. Well, the Supreme Court has once again, this time with 9 judges, unanimously thrown out the NDC's case. The opposition NDC says the Supreme Court's dismissal this afternoon of their case seeking to set aside a voters register judgment is an affront to justice administration. Now, the party's lawyers, led by Chachu Chikata, today refused to argue the case after the Apex Court had refused a request for adjournment of proceedings. My colleague Joseph Akable was in court, saw the drama unfold, and is in the studio with me. Joseph, let's start with the drama. I mean, we'll go to the substance soon, but you say that Mr. Chachu Chikata refused to argue. Why?
Because he had asked the court that they take an adjournment. He said some documents had been filed by the Electoral Commission's lawyers, which he received in the courtroom, according to him, and so he needed time to study those documents and respond to them accordingly. And so he asked that the court grant him an adjournment. And so once the court dismissed that request for adjournment, the court refused to grant it. The court directed that he goes ahead to move his review motion, which is what is the case before the court, asking that he take a second look at the decision that the 7-member panel took. It was at that point that he rose up and said that he's unable to move it because, as he said, he needed more time to study the documents that has been served on him before he can be able to respond to them. Then he took his seat again. And so at that point, it meant that he was not going to move it. And so the Deputy Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, then urged the court to dismiss the case. He made the point that the NDC was running away from its own case. And so if that is the case, then the Supreme Court has no business entertaining the action.
So the court didn't get to hear the arguments from Chachu Chikata, who was representing the NDC?
Yes, they didn't get to hear him, but they had the benefit of the documents which had been filed. And in the decision of the court said it was dismissing the case because it had examined all the documents filed by the parties in the case and has come to the conclusion that a case has not been made for a review of the earlier judgment. So the AG's office had a response. I mean, you've articulated what Godfrey Yeboah-Dame's case was, that nothing had changed from the original case in essence, correct? Yes. And so the point is that in terms of the review, there has to be some exceptional circumstance or some fact of law that you intend to draw the attention of the courts to. But Mr. Dame made a point that, I mean, if they had brought the matter and they are clearly even not interested in pursuing it, the same people who he says have asked for the court to hear the case early are now asking the court for more time to file additional documents and also more time to even respond to what has been filed by the Electoral Commission's lawyers, and they are now even saying they are not going to move it at all. Then the court should dismiss the matter. I can imagine the reaction of the NDC members. Did they accept this outcome? I spoke to a member of the legal team, Abraham Amaleba. He makes the point that an injustice has been done by the Supreme Court.
If you are on your feet and a process is served you seek the court's leave to enable you reply to matters deposed in the affidavit of opposition. It was therefore shocking that the Supreme Court insisted that lead counsel should go ahead and move its motion when indeed the affidavit in opposition from the EC was just served on him while he was on his feet. That for me was against the practice. That for me was against the right of the NDC to enable the NDC reply to those matters deposed in the affidavit. I think that today the Supreme Court actually did injustice to the people of this country, and we leave it to the good people of this country to determine whether justice is being served in the apex court.
But with the court directing that he should move it, I mean, wasn't it a bit disrespectful to say that he's unable to move it, even though the court had said he should go ahead and move the application?
He was unable to move because he needed to apprise himself with the facts or the deposition in the affidavit in opposition coming from the EC, which was just served on him few minutes before the start of the process. The Attorney General's also affidavit was served on us very late, and so there was the need for the counsel, Chachikata, to apprise himself.
The Deputy AG says you are running away from your own application.
The Deputy AG knows very well that if a process is filed on you while you are in court and you have not been able to look through that process, you request for time. I think that the Deputy Attorney General was played to the gallery on this occasion.
Thankfully, the Deputy Attorney General joins us on the telephone line, Mr. Godfrey Yeboah-Dame. Mr. Yeboah-Dame, you were playing to the gallery. That's what your colleague who was in court with you today concludes on the back of the decision of the Apex Court. What's your reaction?
Well, first and foremost, good evening to your cherry listeners and good evening to yourself. I'm actually compelled to speak in view of certain comments that I had earlier on monitored on the network as having been made by members of the NDC legal team. And I find them to be very partist and clearly part of the consistent effort to denigrate the image of the Supreme Court of Ghana. That is why I deemed it duty to respond. Now, indeed, what happened in court today and what the kind of conduct that was engaged in by counsel for the NDC was very awkward and very much unbecoming of a person who was very senior at the bar. I mean, they had filed a motion for review on 24th of June. The motion for review had been fixed for hearing today, 30th of July. Filed the motion on 24th of July, The hearing had been fixed for today, 30th of July. Even in terms of the rules of court, a person who is supposed to respond to such a motion has 14 days within which to respond. Motion for review when served on the defendant respondent has 14 days to respond. So clearly, if there was any person at all who had been shortchanged or any person at all who was disadvantaged in terms of an application of the rules, it was the respondent. That is the Attorney General and the Electoral Commission. The motion was actually served on the Attorney General on Tuesday. My boss referred it to me in the evening of Tuesday. I had called business to attend to yesterday. Yes, out of a duty to the court and in recognition of the seriousness of the matter, we burnt the candle and we filed our submissions late yesterday. The same was served on the council for the NDC. So the point I'm making is that indeed, if there was any disadvantage or any person to complain about a lack of time, it was the respondent. Nonetheless, hold on. We went ahead, we followed our processes, and we're ready to argue the case today.
But Mr. Dami, isn't it factual that the EC also filed processes this morning, which Mr. Chikata says needed time to study? Yes,
Evans, I'll come to that. So, and surprisingly, I think the full circumstances must be made out. The NDC had also actually filed an application for abridgment of time. That is an abridgment or a shortening of the date that the motion for review was to be heard. If you file a motion for review, same is fixed for hearing on 30th July, and you go ahead to file a motion for abridgment of time on 27th July, asking for your motion for review to be abridged. What are you even asking for? You are even asking that the date 30th July, which has been fixed for hearing, should even be brought forward. Today, the motion was heard today, and the court said, nonetheless, the motion should still be heard today. That the substantive motion for review should be heard today. That motion for abridgment of time was granted. Mr. Chatukata was unprepared to go ahead and move his application for review. And the point in issue is that if you apply for review, you do not even need the arguments of that side to start with. The point is that you are actually attaching the judgment to the court. You are not alleging any conduct or behavior on the part of the other side or a party to the action. You're not complaining against any conduct at all of the party of that side. You're actually complaining against a ruling or a judgment of the court. So you're attacking the judgment to the court. You know the point of which you're attacking the judgment to the court. And that case has been fully made out. So for you to come to court and say that because counsel had actually argued against your submissions and filed those arguments in court today, you're not prepared to go on with your own motion, clearly shows a lack of interest in your own application.
No, but Mr. Dami, that's not the whole picture, is it? If we can address the Electoral Commission's decision to file these processes today, one, as I heard, the man was still on his feet.
The Electoral Commission itself had been disadvantaged. The Electoral Commission, to start with, had 14 days under the rules to file a response. They were studied application on Tuesday and were compelled to file in this morning. And I'm saying that the only point that the Electoral Commission was making were arguments in opposition to Mr. Chikata's application. There were no new matters of fact or no fresh of facts that were brought up because they only responded.
But how will he know if he was on his feet when the matter came to him, the documents came to him?
No, he was not on his feet to start with. The application was served on him before the hearing started. So Abraham Malibat to start with is even disingenuous to say that he was on his feet. But the point I'm making is that how can a party be unprepared to question his own case that he had filed and say that, he wants a further time to go and study the argument in opposition to his own case before he can move his own case. So clearly, it was a case where they were resorting to gimmicks and tricks, and even if there was any party who was playing secondary, then it was the NDC. It was the NDC who clearly were playing secondary, resorting to tricks and all manner of gimmicks, or in a bid to avoid a pursuit of their own application. And the reason is that indeed they knew that the judgment to the court was unassailable. I mean, all the matters that they complain about were issues that had been raised at the hearing of the matter, earlier hearing of the matter. In a review application, as your own reporter statement, it is not an occasion for you to reargue your case. It is not a forum for you to address certain points that you thought you could raise, or an occasion for you to bring counsel that you think, with all respect, were even better or a senior.
But Mr. Dame, if the court didn't hear Mr. Chachuchikata, how would the court know the argument he was about to put forward? It wasn't heard.
Good. So that's what I say. I'm saying that the hearing is actually an opportunity for you to state your case. And the case of the applicant has been made out to the processes that were filed, just as your reporter stated. Your reporter indicated to you that indeed all the parties to the action had filed relevant processes that they wanted to rely on. The NDC had fully argued that their case in an affidavit and statement of case. The statement of case was about 25 or so pages. They had argued to all the points of law in that statement of case. That statement of case was filed on 24th July. It was served on the respondent, that's the Attorney General Electoral Commission, on Tuesday, the 28th. And then we managed to file processes on 29th. The Electoral Commission did it on 30th this morning. So in terms of the court having an opportunity to hear all the parties, they indeed have given an opportunity for hearing. I'm saying that a hearing is with regards to an opportunity to state your case. The NDC has stated their case on paper. The defendants had also stated their case on paper. So the court had the benefit of all the arguments at all. So this process of actually moving a motion is unknown to the rules of court, and same as it stated. Even in the High Court, a judge has the jurisdiction and discretion to rule upon a motion, even when counsel had not asked. They always say move a motion. No, even when the counsel had not moved the motion, a judge can rule on the motion. So the court did not require or does not need a party or a lawyer in an action to move any motion at all. Once the motion has been filed, once the motion has been argued in a statement of case attached to the motion, the court is competent to rule on it, and that is what the court did today. This practice happens all the time, even at the High Court, Court of Appeal, and all that. The practice of moving a motion is unknown to the rules. It's not done at all. And that is why they say the superior courts are courts of record. Every important thing is filed and is considered as part of record. The case of the NDC had been made out in the motion, so the court was certificate went to act. Okay. Most of the time, parties will actually be compelled to stick themselves or confine themselves to the processes that have been filed, and they will actually rely on it.
Your colleague from the other side, who was in court with you today as well, as part of the NDC legal team, Eduji Tamaklo, just join us on the telephone line. Mr. Dami, just give me a second, hold the line for me. Mr. Tamaklo, so you were in court today as well. I mean, the Deputy Attorney General argues that the NDC, in essence, you were running away from your own case and were not prepared, and you, although had asked for an abridgment, you now come to court and now ask for another extension. Is that really what happened?
First of all, good evening and good evening to your listeners. I would have wished that he's made his comments, so I'm giving the opportunity to also relate what exactly happened. I'm not comfortable with the whole idea of having a banter with him on air, especially with comments that he makes on air. I'm not comfortable. I may be forced to respond in like manner, and I don't think it will be a very decent conversation. So if you are done with him, I can proceed with them.
Trust me to moderate this in the way that allows you to state your points without.
I've indicated. If you are done with him, you can give me the opportunity to also relate to what happened.
I'm not done with him, but I will hear you, definitely. I mean, you definitely speak to the issues as I've asked.
Like I told you, Evans, I've had interviews with you. I know the person on the other. I mean, I'm not comfortable because he's most likely going to play to the gallery, and I'm not comfortable with that. I do not want to engage in that conversation. If you are done with him, I can proceed. You
have to trust in my ability to moderate this conversation. Okay. I mean, so either you don't trust in my ability to moderate the conversation the way that allows you to articulate your issues. You do. I know you do. So allow me to moderate in a way that allows you to articulate.
So what I'm saying is that I know Godfred Yebu Adami, the Deputy Attorney General, so well. I do not want to engage him if it's going to be a banter. If you are done with him,
so if I tell you it's not going to be a banter,
with respect.
So that's my point. That's why I'm asking you to allow me to moderate and just address the issues. All that is happening right now is that he's on the phone and he will hear what you've said.
I'm just begging you, if you are done with him and he's off, I would oblige you this interview.
So you're saying that once he's on the phone, you cannot talk up to the issues?
No,
okay.
Because I know the person I'm dealing with. He's most likely going to play to the gala. You can even hear the words that he's using. I do not want to go on that tangent. If you are done with him, I will come and then deal with the issue.
I am ready to get you to speak and articulate the issues. When you're done, I would, because this definitely has to be a conversation, and you have to trust my ability.
I listen into.
Yes. You know, so we spent almost 2 minutes on this. I mean, and I'm pretty sure by now we would have made some progress on this.
You started with words like NDC running away from their case and all of those things. I mean, these were comments, unpalatable comments that he was making in the court. I do not want to engage him. Please. I do not want to engage him on that line. I know the person I'm dealing with. Okay,
Mr. Tamaklo. I mean, it has to be a conversation. I mean, if you can't have that in this format, then I would be glad to say that. Then, of course, we will be unable to proceed. But I'm really ready to hear you so you can articulate.
Evans, my point is that I've had interviews with you.
Yeah.
The premise where he starts by saying NDC is running away from his position. But if you will say, it is important that it's recorded.
I'm ready to model this based on the substance, which is really what we'll have. I mean, so let's go to the substance, if you may.
So on the 15th day of this month, the judgment of the Supreme Court was filed at the registry. We obtained a copy. Upon study, we decided to file a review. That review, on Friday when it was filed, the registry indicated, or the registrar of the Supreme Court indicated to us that he is unable to give us a date until further consultation with my Lord, the CJ. On Monday, this Monday, my senior, Dr. Dominic Akrotinga Ayeni, wrote to the learned Chief Justice. Fortunately, he met the Chief Justice in person and indicated that since we are just filed on Friday and we are yet to be given a day, if my Lord pleases, we'll be given a day within the legal vacation, knowing that today is the last day for the legal year. Now, subsequent to that on Monday, whilst this meeting between my learned senior and the Chief Justice of the Republic, a motion for abridgment of time was found. Now, this motion was fixed for today. Now, under the rules of court, an application of this nature to review a decision of the Supreme Court, there are clear timelines for the application to be taken. So it was on the basis of that the letter to the CJ asking for the abridgment was done, and a formal motion also put in place. Now today, when the motion for the abridgment of time came up for taking, again, my senior who appeared in court today, Senior Chachu Chikata, indicated that in moving the application, that when the review application was filed, there was an indication right there that you'll be filing a supplementary statement of case. It was indicated in paragraph 11 of the motion in support. That was actually brought to the attention of the court. So you recall, and your court correspondent, Akable, who was in court, will tell you that the court had to then rise, go take a decision. The court came back and indicated that they are unable to accede to the request to file a supplementary legal argument. And the point Senator Chachu then pointed out to the court is that as at the time we filed. We needed to file the processes within time. And so we indicated that we had to file, and then once we appear before the court, we will seek leave to file a supplementary process. The court said no, and that the request we are seeking from the court is not known to the rule. We said fine. So the court then said they will abridge the time, and the motion for review, that the review application, ought to be heard today. Then Senator Chu indicated that, look, the letter that was written to the CJ indicated that the abridgment ought to be taken during the legal vacation, and that there had been instances, depending on the matter, where the Supreme Court have had to, sit during the legal vacation. And so this is not a request out of the norm. There again, the court said, look, they will rise and go and take a decision. The court came back and said they will refuse that particular request from us again. We said, fair enough. Then the court said, look, he should move the application for review immediately. Then he indicated to the court that just this morning, the Electoral Commission, the second respondent, filed their affidavit in opposition to the review application together with their legal argument just this morning at about 9 a.m. The process was served on us around 9:30 going to 9:45. The court started sitting in particular in relation to this matter around 10. We were served with the process in court. And so he indicated that, at least, in good conscience, he cannot, as a lawyer, come to court, be served with a process that he's not even had the benefit of even looking at. And then you say, go ahead, move your application. As usual, the Deputy Attorney General then decided, as usual, to go to town, play to the gallery, that, oh, you are running away from your motion. They said, what do you mean when you say you are running away from your motion? A motion that was filed. And in fact, the Attorney General's own response was served on us yesterday in the night. We actually asked the bailiff that you know that processes of the court are not served in the night. He said the registrar says it should be served on us because the case is coming on tomorrow morning. So these are the events. And this is not the first time where you go to court. A process is served on you. You indicate to the court. And then the court will oblige you a short adjournment to at least allow you to acquaint yourself with the legal arguments your opponent is making.
So you are ready to take an adjournment that will probably return later today to argue?
In fact, he Godfrey Dame, at a point even said, if that be so, we should come back in October. He himself.
Were you prepared to come back in October if that was granted?
We said there was no need even coming back in October. We could even come back in the legal vacation, as our letter indicated. So these were the matters that transpired. So the court insisted that Malena Syria Chachukasa should remove the application. It was then that he indicated to the court that he's unable to do that. Then the court said, well, if you're unable to do it, once the processes are before us, we will go ahead and give our ruling.
Was it justified, though? Because you already had documents articulating your position before the judges, and which is what I guess presumably they used in arriving at their decision. Was that a position and a decision that you accept?
Once the Supreme Court has taken its ruling, they are the master of their courts. Sometimes it's better to allow posterity to a better judge.
Okay. So
remember that the Supreme Court of Ghana did not just evolve today. Always remember this. That the Supreme Court of Ghana did not just evolve today. So whatever we do, posterity is the best judge. Ghanaians out there, remember that like we always say, justice emanates from the people. So how justice is administered on behalf of the people, they are the better judges. I will not want to comment whether or not what happened. No. We took an application, the lead counsel, Senior Chachich, with the circumstances to the court that in good conscience is unable to move the application. The court said, we will go ahead. So be it.
So, obviously, this is the end of the road on this matter, correct?
As far as the Article 2 action of the Supreme Court, once you are not dissatisfied and you come for a review, I do not know any other option that is available.
I'm grateful, Mr. Tamaklo, for your time. I want to bring back, obviously, the Deputy Attorney General. So we've had the clarifications from the NDC side. As far as your position is concerned and as government, of course, obviously, this is the end of the road. As is quoted the law, nobody allows another avenue to go back to the Supreme Court. So he obviously has concerns with the words you use. I understand this was something you said in court, that they were running away from their own case, but that wasn't the case. As you've articulated, they had a legitimate basis, as you said, because of the processes that were served to them at 9 o'clock when the court was just about to start. That certainly was ambushing them.
How so? I mean, I think that first and foremost, the point must be made that yes, you have high clarity as to what transpired with regards to the service of the processes. Amariba sought to kill the person that was served on Mr. Chikata was on his feet. At least that has been clarified in the interview with Mr.
Tamaklo.
Yes, Tamaklo. Yes, he indicated that he was served on them before commencement of proceedings. So you see, in terms of the gimmickry that I was talking about, yes, if there's any party who is trying to play Tegari, is the NDC. That is one. Now, and I repeat that if there was any party at all who was disadvantaged in all of this, it's the respondents, the defendants. Because in terms of rules, they themselves know that an application for review ought to be served on a party, and the party must be given 14 days to file a response. They filed the application for review on the 24th, just on Friday, and they had it fixed for today, 30th July. They knew that indeed the defendant will be disadvantaged. That disadvantage is not being complained about at all. That to them is right. And even after service, after filing, the service was effected on the Attorney General on the 28th. And I made the point that indeed it was referred to me yesterday. And I'm saying that dutiful as I was minded.
How did you get it yesterday, but they got it at 9 a.m. this morning?
Oh, hold on. What was served on me yesterday was actually their process. Their process was served on the Attorney on the 28th, and the Attorney referred to me, and I got to know about
when did you get the EC processes?
It's also in court.
Okay, you also got it this morning.
I'm talking about the NDC's process, to which I have to respond. Nobody has to respond to a respondent's response.
But really, the EC and yourself, you were on the same side. I mean, so you didn't need to look at those documents, really.
Well, we say so. I mean, a case can be raised by the EC that could actually contradict my case at all. But again, it emphasizes the point that the respondent's response is not material in all of this, because an application for review is an attack on the judgment of the court. So you are applying for review, you are attacking the decision of the court, which has already been made, and you already know your grounds, and NDC knew it, and they had already argued same in full on the 24th of July. So for them to come to court today and say that they needed leave to go and file a response, the respondent's response was improper and not in the rules of court.
Okay, Mr. Godfrey Ibuadem, I'm grateful that you joined us with your thoughts on this. I wonder what you make of this. As you probably would have figured out by now, is really the end of the fights against the compilation of the voter register, as the Supreme Court has finally, sounded a final nail in that. But where do you stand on this conversation? 0244340437. Still ahead on Newsnight, Ghana Health Service announces Gold Track High School students who test positive for COVID-19 will miss their annual vacation.
Any school that has had any positive case in the last 2 weeks, the assessment will be done to identify those who are contacts And if any of them is in that class, their vacation will be delayed.
Also tonight here on Newsnight, security analyst Professor Chrissy Inning revealed that man